Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, we're going to look at some players that I believe Klint Kubiak could potentially pursue this offseason via a trade. If you enjoyed the video that I put out a few days ago about Kubiak free agent targets, it's kind of the exact same thing. I want to be very clear. Just because you're going to see a player on this show does not mean that I want the Raiders to go out and target them. But because I have covered this team, and we've had Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, Josh McDaniels, and all these different regimes, I know when you bring in a new regime, sometimes that coach likes to bring in people that he has worked with in the past. And because Kubiak has worked with so many different players, so many different organizations, what I'm really trying to focus on today is players on the offensive side of the football that could actually be traded this offseason that maybe the Raiders have some interest in. If you find yourself looking for more Raiders videos, more Raiders trade videos, buckle up, Buttercup. Strap it on. Giggity. It's going to be the craziest offseason of all time. And I'm telling you this right now, if the Raiders make a trade, you already know I'm going to be live. Let's talk about Kubiak's coaching past, because I do think that that's important when you look at the way that I'm doing this show and when you look at who he could potentially trade for. And the way that I'm going to run through today's program is I'm going to start at quarterback. I'm going to go running back, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line. And I'm only going to talk about the players on the offensive side of the football because until we know who our defensive coordinator is, I don't want to talk about trade targets for Kubiak. So let's start here at the quarterback position. And yes, I do think that there is a chance that the Raiders potentially trade for a quarterback. If I was on this team, I would say you're just better off signing another backup to have with Aiden O'Connell and Fernando Mendoza. I don't really think it's smart to go out and trade for a QB, but if it's at the right price tag, who knows? Anything's possible. Geno Smith will be gone. Kenny Pickett's going to be a free agent, so you only have Aiden O'Connell. The first name I'm going to bring up is somebody that I would love for the Raiders to trade for. The problem is I don't think Jalen Milroe comes to Las Vegas because the only reason why Milroe, in my mind, would want to get out of Seattle is because he knows that Sam Darnold's probably going to get a big old fat contract extension this offseason. But Milroe has worked with Kubiak for the past year, but then that puts Milroe kind of in the exact same damn spot that he's in. The only way that I think something like this ends up happening is if Jalen Milroe looks at Klint Kubiak and goes, hey, can I sit back and learn from you for multiple years? And then if it doesn't work well with Mendoza, maybe you decide to go with me. But very, very interesting, Jalen Milroe. Let's go to another name here, Spencer Rattler. Rattler obviously was with Kubiak in 2024. They went with a few different quarterbacks. We know Derek Carr was there. They went with Rattler. It looks like it's the Tyler Shuck show. So if you were the silver and black and you wanted to go, okay, we got Mendoza at number 1. Then you got Aiden O'Connell at number 2. If you wanted to have Aiden O'Connell and Spencer Rattler kind of battle it out for that QB2 spot, I don't think that's the worst thing to do ever. Like, I actually really don't. I had the opportunity to talk to Rattler a few years ago at the Super Bowl. He was a very nice kid. Some people have said that they don't love his leadership abilities, but if I'm talking about a QB2 battle, who knows? Spencer Rattler is somebody to keep in mind. This is probably the big name here, and it's Kirk Cousins. But you're probably sitting here going, well, wait a minute, Mitch. You featured Cousins in your free agent video. I did, because I don't think anybody's going to trade for Kirk Cousins, and I think Atlanta's going to end up cutting him. But the connection is there because he worked with Kubiak from 2019 to 2021. 3 straight seasons with a passer rating of above 100. What's interesting is the money. So if you're the Raiders and you go out and you trade for Kirk Cousins, Atlanta eats a crap ton of money. Now, I talked to our Falcons guy. He told me you'd probably be able to get this deal done for like a 6th or a 7th round pick. But the cap hit for the Raiders in 2026, $2.1 million. The cap hit for Kirk Cousins in 2027 is like $90 million. But he's got zero of that million guaranteed. So you could, in theory, trade for Kirk Cousins, get him for $2.1 million this season, and then you could cut him, zero guaranteed, in 2027. With you knowing that information, would you do it? This is going to be the pinned comment here on today's program. Type T for trade. Type P for pass. Should the Las Vegas Raiders trade for Kirk Cousins? And I want to be clear. If you trade for Cousins, you are making him the backup to Fernando Mendoza. because you don't draft a quarterback at number 1 overall to have him sit on the bench for a year. My answer coming up right after this YouTube ad break. The reason why I'm going to sit here and say pass, it's because, one, Kirk Cousins doesn't want to be a backup. I think he's made that pretty damn clear that he still believes that he can be a starter. And if you are going to trade for a veteran quarterback, I want that veteran to know what his job is, and I want that veteran quarterback to know that his job is to make Fernando Mendoza the best version of himself. The other reason why I'm going to say no is because I know Aiden O'Connell's not as good as Kirk, but also I do think Aiden can be a smart quarterback in the corner of Mendoza that makes Fernando the best version of himself. But I'm not trading for somebody that doesn't want to be a backup quarterback. It's not going to happen. Let's go to the running back position next up here on the program. And running back is another position that the Raiders need to add some talent around. You can't tell me otherwise. I know we have Ashton Jeanty, but outside of Ashton Jeanty, Raheem Mostert, free agent. Zamir White, free agent. So that means Ashton Jeanty, Dylan Laube, and Chris Collier are our running backs. That means we need more depth. First name I'm going to bring up, Zach Charbonnet. The reason why he's on this show is because he's coming off an ACL injury. So there's going to be some risk involved. But you're telling me that new offensive coordinator, they're going to step foot, and I don't know if they're going to trust Charbonnet. Because I'll tell you this, if I was the new OC in Seattle, I would draft a running back. I would be looking to add somebody this offseason that I know that I can count on, and maybe that pushes Charbonnet off to the side a little bit. So if you're the Raiders, you sit back and you go, can I bring in a pass-catching back? Yeah, he's coming off an ACL. But Charbonnet is a really good second running back to somebody like Jeanty. Let's go to another name here, Jordan Mason. He worked with Kubiak in 2023 with the 49ers. I reached out and I talked to our Vikings host, because that's where Mason is now, and he said that he really does not think that Jordan Mason will be on the trade block, and he's going to be a good player, I think, for the Vikings. Also, it sounds like Aaron Jones is going to get moved on from. But the bigger reason why I wanted to bring up Mason is because this is the type of running back that you should be aiming to add in free agency. A really good RB2 that you know is not going to put the ball on the ground, and when you ask him to get 3, 4, 5 yards, they get north and south, which is what Jordan Mason does. Let's go to the wide receiver position. Next up here on my Kubiak trade targets, and this is when it gets juicy. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, the names here around wide receivers should give you a little bit more excitement. And, Kubiak's got a lot more experience working with wide receivers throughout his entire career. Trey Tucker, Jack Besh, those are your top two guys. I actually do think that a very underrated wide receiver, and I'll say it right now, I think Shedrick Jackson has a bigger year with Klint Kubiak than Dante Thornton Jr. And I only say that because Thornton's very, very far away from being ready to rock and roll. So let's first talk about a big name here, a guy like Chris Olave. Final year of his contract with the Saints. If you trade for him, you're taking on $15.5 million for 2026. But I want to be very clear. If you trade for Olave, you're trading for him, and you are instantly extending him. Plus, our Saints guy Trace told me that he thinks it would be a first, maybe a second-round pick. I want to be clear. I have no interest in Chris Olave for a first-round pick. I think he's an extremely talented player, though he did have his worst year of his entire career, mainly due to a lot of concussions and injuries with Kubiak in those 8 games played. He's coming off a stellar year, though. 100 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. If you're New Orleans and you give up on Olave after the year that he just had with Tyler Shuck, and Shuck's clear go-to guy, I think that would be a bad move for that organization. So if you're the Raiders, you're like, all right, well, I need a number 1 wide receiver. Is there a way where I might be able to find somebody who's good and a little bit cheaper? There's some risk involved with this next name, but I wouldn't trade for Chris Olave, and I would actually much rather look at a guy like Jerry Jeudy. I know, former Bronco, but we're talking price tag here. The Browns, they traded for Jerry Jeudy, and they got him for like a 5th or a 6th round pick, I believe. I talked to our Browns host. He told me that's probably what it would cost. So if you're telling me I can bring in a 26-year-old Jerry Jeudy who's got 2 years left on his deal, and when he was with Kubiak, he had a career-high 6 touchdowns, 67 grabs, 972 yards. The career high was the 6 touchdowns. But the cap hit, $1.5 million in 2026, $13.4 million in 2027. And if it's only going to cost you a 3rd, 4th, maybe a 5th round pick, like, I'll tell you this, I think it's probably closer to a fourth. Fourth round pick for Jerry Jeudy. You got 3 fourth-round picks on this roster. If you're the Raiders and you don't know if you can find a player as good as Jeudy, he's got drop issues, he's got some other things. But I don't think that that's the worst idea out there. One name that I continuously get asked about, Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if Brandon Ayuk's ever going to play football ever again. And the way that I'll say this one is simple. I have no interest in George Pickens because it's a lot of money for a guy who's clearly a diva and cares about himself. Same exact thing for Brandon Ayuk. If you talk to any 49ers fan, I mean, Chugs just said it's like Antonio Brown all over again. It is. I mean, they don't know if he's ever going to play again. He didn't even contact the team. Yes, I know that Ayuk in 2023 was an absolute monster. I'm not trading for Brandon Ayuk. I don't care what it is. I'm not interested in him. I don't think he's ever going to play football again. I don't know if he wants to play football ever again. Let's go to the biggest name out of them all. You ready? Justin Jefferson. It's clear that JJ is not good with JJ McCarthy. And I do think that Jefferson wants to go down in the history books as being one of the greatest receivers of all time. And I do know that there's a lot of turnover going on right now in Minnesota, right? They just fired their GM. They are a little bit up in the air about who that next quarterback is going to be of that organization. If I'm Minnesota, shit, man, I might reach out the phone. I might try to call and look for a guy like a Kirk Cousins. Honestly, I don't even think it's a terrible idea for Minnesota to pick up the phone and try to go get a guy like Geno Smith if I'm being 100%. So, hey, Minnesota, if you want to get that deal done, let's get it going. But Justin Jefferson, no doubt, is unbelievably talented. I talked to our Vikings guy. He told me it's probably going to be at minimum 2 first-round picks on top of a player of starting caliber. I don't think that the Raiders are going to want to move on from that many first-rounders potentially. So I'll say it like this. If you want Justin Jefferson, I think at the minimum you got Max Crosby, and we have to probably add some other stuff on top of that. He's no doubt talented, but I really do not think that Justin Jefferson is going to be a trade target despite Klint Kubiak working with him before. Out of all the names that I mentioned, I think Jerry Jeudy's your best option. I'm not saying I would go out 100% and trade for Jeudy. There's other players that I would rather get. But in terms of the guys that I talked about on this video, in terms of being realistic and best bang for your buck, I think Jeudy at the age of 26 would be the name out of those receivers that's realistic that I would pursue. Now, if you guys do not know, the Raiders, I feel like we're back, man. I do. I feel like we are flipping back. And it just feels like the 2026 offseason is going in the right direction. So if you want to get your hands on a Wear Kubiak shirt, I know there's no C in his actual name. But if you got to walk it through, if it doesn't make sense to you, you don't need it. But if you feel like we're back, I also feel like we're back. And I feel like we're Kubiak, man. So go get your shirt, chatsports.com/Kubiak, if you think that the Raiders are back. Because I do. I think that the Raiders are back. You can get it in a hoodie. You can get it in a T-shirt. Comes in all different shapes and sizes. That link is going to be available all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show to the already over 100 people that have gotten their hands on one of these bad boys. I see you. Salute to you. Thank you so much for supporting the Raiders Report. Let's go to the tight end position next up here on the show. And for the Raiders, you got to be looking at tight end 3. We got Brock. We got Michael. I could also make the argument you might not even need a tight end 3 because Albert O also worked with Klint Kubiak back in 2022 with the Denver Broncos. Essentially, what I'm looking for here is, do I need a Ian Thomas replacement? Do I need somebody that I got to go out and get to just be able to bring in because, I don't know, maybe I'm not confident in Carter Runyon or Albert O to be my tight end 3. So the next names that you're going to see is going to be simply around Ian Thomas, finding a replacement for him. The first name I'm going to bring up here is A.J. Barner, who had himself, I think, a career year in Seattle. 6'6", 250 pounds, 52 grabs, 519 yards, 6 touchdowns. If I'm Barner, I choose not to come to the Raiders because Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers. In all honesty, I think if they traded for Barner, that would be bad news for Michael Mayer. Another name that I'll bring up here that I do think is probably more on the likely side if they were to trade for a guy, Eric Saubert. What would it take? 7th round pick in the 2027 NFL draft. But Saubert has been with Kubiak for 2 seasons, 2022 and in 2025. This would be the type of player that you bring in to let Alberto, let Carter Runyon, let Saubert all battle it out for that tight end 3 position. Coming up next here, though, let's talk about the offensive line. And I do think that there is one player in particular that has clear Kubiak connections, but he also has Michigan ties. And when I talked to one of our teams here at Chat Sports, they said absolutely they could see him on the trade block. The reason why I think a lot of people are going to watch this show is for this next player that I'm going to talk about here on today's program. But before I get into that, I'm going to keep saying it because I can't even believe it, man. The week is here. This Friday, hang out with me and Jeremy Chuggs, Fairway Zone, Sports Bar and Lounge in San Jose, California. Don't call to reserve your spot. There's no more spots to be reserved. If you want to show up, you got to show up. It's the only way you're getting in. It's going to be a packed house. It's going to be me and Chuggs, Sam and Chase, our Seahawks and our Patriots hosts. I promise you this, so if you show up, they have a giant parking lot. I was told that we could literally even party into the parking lot. So beautiful indoor-outdoor area. I think I saw the weather's supposed to be also really good, like low 70s, mid 60s. It's going to get a little bit chillier as the night comes in. But with what we've been dealing with here in Dallas, 50s, 60s, man, shit, I might wear some shorts. If you want to hang out with us, though, please make sure you pull up. I can't wait for the event. Let's go to the offensive line now. And again, the idea of this show was I didn't want to just throw a bunch of players up on the on screen and say, this guy could be traded, this guy could be traded, if there wasn't actually a possibility. I do think when you look at a lot of those names that I've already showed, most of them are going to be traded. Probably the number one that won't is Jordan Mason, and I think JJ could get traded. I just don't think it ends up coming to the Raiders personally. But from an offensive line standpoint, you got to figure out what you got, and you got to figure out what you don't got. Dylan Parham's going to hit the open market. Where I'm looking right now is right guard. I don't have the highest confidence in a guy like Caleb Rogers. I do think DJ Glaze is still interesting. Maybe you can kick him into guard. Charles Grant at offensive tackle. Maybe you kick him over to the right tackle spot. But to me, I'm looking at being able to go out and add a guard. And there's one player in particular that Klint Kubiak has worked with, and his name is Cesar Ruiz. Worked with Kubiak in 2024. He's on the New Orleans Saints. And Ruiz had his best year with Kubiak in 2024. 67.6 overall grade. You can see the pass blocking. You can see the run blocking. Both very passable. His cap hit, though, this next season is $9.5 million, but he's got zero guaranteed. So if you're the Raiders and you wanted to take a little bit of a flyer on a dude that's got 2 years left on his contract, what's important about Ruiz, career year with Kubiak, plays right guard predominantly, also Michigan guy. When you know that somebody's got all of those types of connections, that does matter to this organization, because if it's good with Klint and he goes, hey, he played at Michigan, I do wonder if that matters to John Spytek and Tom Brady. So out of the names that I mentioned on this video, I would say the people that have Klint Kubiak connections, so again, just keep an eye out for them. I'll say Jerry Jeudy at the wide receiver position. Again, I saw some people going, Jerry Jeudy stinks. He's 26 years old, and I think we could all agree. The quarterback situation right now in Cleveland, the situation in Cleveland has not been a good situation at all. Former first-round draft pick out of Alabama. He does have some talent, and if it's only going to cost you a fourth or a fifth-round pick, well then, again, maybe it's a flyer you take. Jalen Milroe would be a very intriguing quarterback, too, for this team that's worked with Kubiak last year. Cesar Ruiz got the Michigan ties, also had a career year with Kubiak in 2024. And then I'll say Jordan Mason. But to be clear, I really do not think that Jordan Mason is going to be on the trade block. So one more time here before we hop on out of here, if you're looking to get your hands on a Klint Kubiak shirt, if you feel like Raider Nation is back, hey man, wear it with your chest, wear it with pride, and also the more people that get them, the bigger and bigger and bigger we can continue to grow this Raiders Report community.